So I'll start us off with a little introduction to Pandion first, just for those of us who are new here, and then I'll introduce Mike and we can take it from there. So to let you all know who we are as an organization, Pandion Music Foundation is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit that equips emerging music creators around the world with tools to help foster more equitable, attainable, and sustainable careers. Based in Los Angeles, we amplify diverse voices to grow a more inclusive music industry by providing free online workshops like these and wellness initiatives that connect independent musicians with leading professionals, such as Mike, who's here today with us. Um, so yeah, we just recognize that the music industry is really challenging and that a lot of us have shared experiences. So we like to have these workshops and bring everyone together in not charge any fees behind because so many other companies in the music industry and entertainment business obviously charge a lot of money for things like this. So we want to break down that barrier for people and allow anyone, regardless of background, to join us and gain information from professionals and information that's often kind of gate kept, I think, in this industry. So it's really useful, and we feel so lucky to be able to have these experiences with you all and to offer them to people. So thank you for being here and for supporting us in this process. And Mike Locke, I will give him a little introduction, who's here joining us today as our guest. He's a seasoned leader in music licensing and a co-founder of Silverside Productions, and a former VP of creative synchronization and marketing at Atlas Music Publishing, with significant tenures at Warner Brother Music Group and In Grooves as well, now Virgin Music Group. He has secured high-profile placements in iconic brands, major films, and hit TV shows, consistently setting industry benchmarks. So we're very excited to hear from you, Mike, and get to talk to you today. We always encourage everybody to drop comments or questions in the chat as we're going through. And Mike, like we mentioned before, I can keep track of those, so don't feel like you need to be keeping track and distracted by the chat. So I will look at those, and anyone who wants to actually come onto the screen and talk to Mike directly, you're welcome to just raise your virtual hand, or you can pop in the chat and ask, and we can bring you on to ask a question. So yeah, thank you again, Mike, for being here. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. If you want to give a little more background on yourself, if we missed anything in the bio, that'd be great, just to let everyone know kind of how you got to where you are in your career and where you are right now.
Sure. And then if you want to kind of help steer the conversation, we'll aim to focus a little bit more and a bit of a deeper dive into advertising. From what I understand, there maybe hasn't been quite as much of that in the sync space as far as the discussions on these. So happy to steer the conversation there or elsewhere, depending on where it goes. But yeah, started Silverside in 2011 after being at Warner Music Group, as you noted, and I was there for a decade, 10 years, and then launched Silverside, which is a sync licensing focused company, but we do have a digital label as well and a publishing arm or publishing services. So we offer different types of deals. We work with independent songwriters, artists, producers, with sync being the driving focus and core of everything we do. In addition to working, or while we work and focus on everything that's independent that makes sense for our roster, we have the pleasure of also representing for sync some deep catalogs, including a couple deals with estates and one with the Andy Williams estate, in representing some very recognizable recordings from the 50s and 60s, because he controlled two labels called Barnaby Records and Cadence Records. And through that deal, we have the Everly Brothers original recording of All I Have to Do Is Dream, the Chordettes, Mr. Sandman and Lollipop, some Link Ray recordings, the early Andy Williams recordings before he signed to Sony. So we're thrilled about that. And having that deep catalog in addition to the current music opens up a lot of conversations and doors for us to get a lot of continued exposure across all media, with sync being our, again, driving focus. So we have, sort of three types of deals: just sync representation, sometimes with certain artists, it can be a label focused deal or an advanced deal. And depending on the circumstances, it may also be a publishing type of deal that we get into and run through that side. We recently signed a songwriter that wrote 50% of the Borns song, 10,000 Emerald Pools. On the publishing side, we have songwriter of the Bon Bondies, whose main kind of record of note was on Warner Music Group, but we're on the publishing side. And so that's kind of, big picture overview. And then we'll steer this, I think, largely towards the types of trends and ways to focus and just be aware of the types of music songs that are licensing and advertising, and that revenue stream, in the sync space.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it sounds like I love the sound of your company that you started, and it sounds like you've had some really great success with getting some amazing artists on there, which is cool. I don't know if we've had a lot of smaller independent agencies and things on, but to hear that like the Everly Brothers, you've got their music and some big artists like that, it's very cool to have someone on who has that experience. And yeah, we'd love to talk about advertising, because that is something that we haven't delved into as much. I think maybe a lot of our community has looked at that independently, but we would love to hear from you why, for musicians, it's so valuable to know about the benefits of sync advertising and advertising specifically, and how musicians can better kind of prepare their music for that kind of opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll dig in maybe even to some kind of examples, and like sync in general, it really runs the gamut, right? But in particular, in the last couple of years, with the industry constricting, though hopefully opening back up a little bit more so on the TV and film side. The first hit being the pandemic, the second hit being the strike, and then coming out of the strike, not as much general seems to be the consensus, not as much widespread volume of activity in the TV film space as before the strikes. Hopefully now, with slates and productions increasing, ramping up, the level of work with the music supervisors and the clients and the studios will accordingly ramp up a little bit to open up opportunities. Reality TV has still been there through all this. TV, there's still a lot of TV film opportunities. That's still a good amount of our business. It's just been a bit constricted. So in part because of that too, I thought it'd be good to angle this into the advertising space and seeing what type of music, generally we've had successes with licensed there. And also because advertising is still there, and brands are constantly, generating, different, opportunities and needs for music. And there's been, I think, ample opportunity for independent songs as well in that space.
That's great to hear. Yeah, we've heard from others too. I think people that work with independent musicians, it's good to hear that is happening. And I know depending on the budget, sometimes that makes it easier for you as well. And it's great for indie musicians. So yeah, so it's nice to hear that. Just gonna check the chat really quick. Looks like we've somebody has asked, does this give you the ability to sync covers of those same artists from the 50s? That's interesting. We have questions about covers sometimes, if you'd want to touch on that before we move on.
Yeah, and I think that's something we can get into more. So we do a handful of covers, and there's some practices and ins and outs, we should make sure everyone thinks is, or everyone is aware of. With that particular specific question, we represent the master recordings, and then we're regularly in touch with the publishing arms. So we're not, if we were to do a cover, we're not participating on anything on the publishing side because we don't represent the publishing for that particular label group that I referenced that has the Andy Williams, the recognizable songs from the Chordettes and the Everly Brothers, and some more. However, we do rep a couple other catalogs that have shares of publishing and some recognizable songs, and there's interest for us to cover those. and then represent on behalf of the publishing share. And then depending on how you structure the deal, we're able to control or represent the master recording, the new cover. And so recording covers still is definitely a good idea. With the catalog we represent, we are exploring derivative or samples, and then we control the respective sampled share in that master recording, or the overlays, the trailerizations in the promo trailer space, et cetera. So we be involved in that level of the master recording. But covers are a great way, and something we've done a lot, especially in the promo trailer space, but in commercials too. The right cover is great. The key thing is, who are the publishers, and are they okay with covers being licensed? And then what's your approach in how you're going to cover that song? And the best route is, if you're working with a licensing agency, they can do this for you. If you're doing it on your own, do your best due diligent research to see who the publisher is, and are they okay with covers? If you're doing a dramatic different version, will they license that? Of course, then there's the fee, and maybe you've covered, the cover version may not be most favored nations with the publishing share, likely not. It's the recognizable song that's going to charge accordingly through that. So if you're covering the Rolling Stones, know that there's not going to be very many, general run-of-the-mill opportunities. It's got to be a massive thing. It's possible they will license, the song, but at a big fee, and then you're of course not going to be able to charge the same rate on your cover.
Yeah, that's a question I think we get from the artist perspective, is like, what's the legality for actually recording a cover song with the existing publishing that exists for the original. And so yeah, that's important information to know from the artist side as well. All right, let's see. Oh, I've got a question here, I think, maybe. Ken says, "Hi, Mike. I saw on your website that you weren't accepting submissions now. Is that going to change in the future, or is there a way to submit down the road?"
Yeah, you can contact me through this. We'll check out submissions through this forum, and we'll listen to anything sent through of you guys on this panel.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that generosity. Do you want to talk a little bit more about royalties? That might be a good topic to move to quickly.
Sure. One thing I noted kind of in our template that we may not focus in a deeper dive, but we'll address it, is being a label side. I don't know how many things come up, and then on the publishing side, there's of course the royalties that come into play from the DSPs, and ensuring that you either ensure that your distributor is collecting from Sound Exchange and PPL for rest of world. If you use Sound Exchange for the US, PPL for the recorded side royalties that come into play for uses of your recordings ex-US, or do you have it just covered for the world with your distributor? So be aware of those things. We have a deal where we collect with Sound Exchange directly. Our distributor collects royalties from the services, the DSPs, and then PPL for rest of world. We found that, and then in a particular case, we have a neighboring rights arrangement with through our distributor to cover a territory that's not covered through PPL. So you can get really granular, to make sure you're getting all royalties you can worldwide. Through neighboring rights collections, they have blanket deals with studios, with all the majors, with all the major distributors. So if you want your music included as recordings that are available to be licensed under the blanket deals internationally, they can find those recordings, but it's provided you have the right setup in place and collections with those entities, and usually it's covered through your distributor. You're fine there. That's on the recording side. And then on the publishing side, I think generally people are going to be aware of the PROs, ASCAP, BMI, et cetera, streaming mechanicals, digital mechanicals, the MCL, and making sure you're registered with the MCL to collect those streaming mechanicals for you through the DSPs. And that's kind of a little bit on the royalty side. When you license your music, the performance, and you can get those payouts. There's different rules internationally than in the US. But in the US, for example, there's certain films in film, I believe that you don't get those performance royalties, but you do internationally. But the re-airing of TV shows, et cetera, that's where if you license something, including into a reality show, and you're the songwriter, you make sure you have everything buttoned up in that song, registered so you can collect those back end royalties.
Yeah, I think that can be like a gray area, especially even for me, like just a couple years ago, I didn't really know the difference between like the recording side, and the publishing side and how that was kind of split and the royalties are collected differently. Can you just, for people who don't know, we hear that word DSPs a lot now and PPL, what those are, just in case people are still unsure of how to collect the royalty and make sure that they're checking all the boxes and getting all of their pay.
Yeah, so the DSPs are just digital streaming providers, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, the services that your TuneCores, your CD Baby, your DistroKid, your Orchard, InGroove's now Virgin Music Group, have deals with. So you can self-release through a platform, and they're all going to have relationships and provide your music to all the DSPs. Sound Exchange and PPL are recorded side royalty revenues from the recordings, and the artists on those recordings are the performers. The distributor that you go through will likely be covering, and through your percentage rate or your one-time fee, whichever distributor route you're going, you'll just want to double check that they are covering registration of your recordings with Sound Exchange and PPL. Sound Exchange can do it for rest of world. We found it helpful to do a direct deal with PPL to cover excluding United States. So something to look into. But PPL is effectively like recorded side royalties for the released music that you, for the recordings, for the label, and then the artist / performer. Those are the main sources on the recorded side. And then publishing, your PROs, and the MLC, Mechanical Licensing Collective, which others, including our publishing consultant, can speak much more eloquently and in detail about that than I can, because we work with someone now who's our kind of publishing expert as part of our team. But they collect, they have deals with all the streaming providers. It came about through US Copyright Act, and collect for digital streaming mechanicals. All the streaming mechanicals is collected through the MLC now. So you want to make sure you're registered as a songwriter if you control your own publishing. If you're with a publishing company, then they are going to be registered with the MLC and ensuring they have all the delivery of your songs so they can collect the streaming mechanicals from the DSPs.
Great. Yeah. And I think, as far as I know, MLC is relatively simple to get. It's similar to like BMI, or just you become a member, you submit the music, it's the same kind of process. But yeah, it is relatively new, that the system that they're doing that now. So good to look into that and make sure you're covered there.
Right. Yeah. And it's different than a download. So they're just collecting, just to make that distinction. And I haven't thought about this in a minute, but they're just collecting the streaming mechanical royalties. If you are doing a cover song and then releasing that cover, and pressing physical copies on vinyl or something, or you're a writer of a song on a label that's releasing and selling still physical downloads in some way, sorry, physical downloads, selling downloads or physical copies, then you'll need either a direct mechanical license, negotiate that, or again, this is where you hear it, HFA, Harry Fox Agency, to get that physical download mechanical license or physical mechanical license. But the MLC covers the vast bulk of royalties currently when it's the streaming mechanicals for all the streaming services that are that have that mechanical rate that's paid through for the publishers and all the writers. That's all going through the MLCs for collections, and you just want to get your share.
So
Be registered
so
there.
Harry
Mhm.
Fox, Harry Fox is still relevant for downloads. I actually didn't realize that. I thought
Yeah.
that the MLC was cool. Okay, that's good to know. Someone asked that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's two. Is HFA and MLC maybe like sharing a platform or their databases or something? But yeah, the MLC is specifically for US only. Thank you. And
yeah,
yes, that's a good distinction in collecting and streaming mechanical royalties from the DSPs. Mhm.
great. Cool. Okay, good to get all that. It's like a lot of
Yeah, there's
jargon
some
that's
great
like,
things in the chat too. Hopefully this is good for the room if this doesn't get talked about a lot for your music. If there's a lot of, which I understand, independent songwriters, artists on here.
yes.
I don't know if you need to submit also to, was that also to HFA? I think there's some sort of shared,
Mm.
platform, but specifically if you need a mechanical license covered for, yeah, for a digital download purposes,
Hmm.
then HFA is your route or an option for that, unless you negotiate directly.
Cool. Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah,
Maybe
and
look into
and
that a
maybe
bit
this is
more.
being clarified. So yep.
Yeah. And I thank you for dropping that in the chat. We had a workshop with somebody from the MLC a while back. So if anyone's curious about that and wants more
Good.
information about the MLC, gave a great presentation about their company, and might talk about that more. That was many months ago now. I think that was last year. Cool. And then someone else is asking, had a good question about they were asking what your day looks like as far as finding and approaching opportunities, and what struggles do you face in that?
Yeah. Well, each day is a little different. Being the owner of a company, you got to kind of deal with certain fires that might be unexpected things that come up. But being a sync licensing driven and focused company, a part of my day is the fun, creative side that comes up, and to the extent helpful, we can dig into some of the current types, examples of trends or things being asked about on a creative front. But yeah, I deal with the creatives, the supervisors, in-house people at the studios, and what their music needs are for their projects. So that's a part of my everyday. We are on a lot of lists, and we'll be able to receive the briefs of what clients are looking for. We do our best to be proactive and find out what's coming up, and checking in with people and seeing what their music needs are for those projects, and just kind of keeping in touch. So that sort of creative hat is a part of my day to day. Someone that unfortunately at last minute had something come up, so I wasn't able to join, but that was going to join me on this call is a colleague of mine named Stephen, who's specifically focused in advertising now, and we're excited to have just recently expanded our team, so everything advertising, in and out, creative based, and negotiation and licensing based. That person is dealing with. He's based in New York and comes from the advertising lane. So, and then film TV, I tend to cover a good amount of that. My business partner, Craig, covers a lot also in that space, but also in the promo trailer land and video game. We have another colleague who covers certain more smaller miscellaneous and reality shows. So that creative front of what people are looking for in the sync licensing space is an everyday part of my job. Wish sometimes there was just more time where it's only that. Another part, though, in particular every quarter, becomes the royalties because we are a label and we have a royalty partner and a couple consultants I work with and a bookkeeper. So we round up our royalties from our label side releases, and also now, our publishing. Many publishers might pay out semi-annual. We pay out some. Our deals are in some cases semi-annual, but we tend to do quarterly payments and round those up. So there's some assessment in every quarter My day gets a little busier than I'd like in the roundup of the royalties. And then we are, I'd say every day too, a big part of our day, particularly my business partner, Craig, who runs a little bit more of the A&R and point person for our roster, or new considerations, which is few and far between. But we do sign new things when it makes sense for our catalog. But we're constantly getting an influx of new music from the current producers and artists. Something I think would be helpful on this call to get into is the collaborations. And a lot of the producers, artists we work with, songwriters, are collaborating with other people. So sometimes we end up taking on new deals through a co-writer of someone that we more regularly deal with. So someone's a producer gets with a new writer. We think that output that new song that they came up with is fantastic. If the other co-writer is not already in another deal, we may explore doing a particular new deal with them. So there's also that sort of new deals, and we can get into the types of deals that we do as a sync licensing company. But many of them are just representation deals. The artist, songwriter will still own the music. We're not paying money, that we're just representing it. And we will do a new rep deal to cover that share and possibly get into other music that we take on from that songwriter. So that's a part of the day as well. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good thing for people to remember, that collaborations, if you want to get involved with a company that doesn't accept new things as often, that's a way to kind of get involved in a different route, is through collaborations. Do you want to talk a little more about how that looks and how someone could kind of get involved if they want to in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple different ways it can look, I guess. One, of course, is the relationship already with the producer that might be with a licensing company. Ideally, for those who are songwriters and open and doing collaborations, you might want to explore someone that's having some sync success. See if there feels like something you could bring to the table. And seeing about getting with someone to do a new song. Sometimes rights often happen around, kind of briefs that maybe that particular brief already happened, already came and went, but we will work with our roster and round up creative ideas, often specific, kind of briefs that were sent to us, or our own take on what might be a recurring thing and theme and sound that we see coming up enough where it feels worthwhile to maybe take some inspiration from that in a new write. And we often are suggesting people kind of wearing almost like a publishing A&R hat in that respect, but thinking, okay, this rapper has this great vibe, maybe we have a relationship with them, or maybe even an outside company, but they're open to doing rights with some of the writers, artists on our roster, producers, and we get them together and often feeding them certain briefs or templates of directions. And the goal there, and it's a tricky one, and it's a fine line, and it's so hard to talk about, but for us, it's aiming to be ultimately coming up with a song that has levels of realness and authenticity and an artist voice within there. I'm sure, many of you here and I'll impress upon the fact that, maintaining an integrity and a sort of a voice that can be your own, in particular if you're the front artist and the singer, and if you're part of a project in that or an artist venture, that you develop as much as possible, a sound that can be authentic to you and bring that. It's hard, at the same time, we represent songs that, yes, they're kind of written around, ideas, but the goal is to take inspiration from those and to come up with something that feels still special, unique. And yeah, on one hand, it's inspired by sync trends and a sync driven write, but on the other hand, it's as much as possible not so on the nose a sync song, So I think our catalog is to the extent we can, what we sometimes turn down is just something that feels too, it's so obvious, it's just so much a sync song, and it's not quite carrying a level of specialness or an authenticity or a real artist voice within there. It's a fine line because we also want to check those boxes as much as possible, that it's hitting the right tones to be applicable and work in sync. But again, we like stuff that's pushing the boundaries a bit within that space.
Cool.
That helps.
Yeah.
We almost, what this could pivot. Is this going till just another 25 minutes, or is it going longer?
Yeah.
I think. Okay.
Yeah, just till noon.
So yeah, we'll want to dig in as much as possible as we can on things, but we could pivot and play the Ray-Ban and Facebook commercial spot.
Yeah, I was literally just about to,
Yeah, and then I could talk about that song because that
great.
We loved that song, and it kind of came from us providing some inspiration and direction to that artist and songwriter.
Cool. That would be great to see. Yeah, we would love an example. Perfect.
Should I share my screen and just play it from my screen?
Yeah, if that's all right. If you can do that, I think you have the ability, so it should work. Just make sure you click the little share sound.
Share sound, and should I click optimize for video sharing?
I think so. That might make it better. I'm still like bamboozled by Zoom sometimes. Yeah, that should work.
Okay. Is it sharing it?
Are you just sharing the sound, or are you sharing a screen as well?
I'll share the commercial spot, the screen.
Okay. I'm not seeing anything yet. If you, let's see.
Yeah, you choose share screen, and then under that it said share sound, which I think is where you were at, and then you click share, so that way we can see your screen as well.
And you can choose the window to share if you need to. Right. Otherwise, I could try to do it from my end.
Okay, let me try it.
Huh.
It'll work?
No.
I'm not seeing it still. That's strange. Let me make sure that you have. Should we try it from our end, Anai?
Yeah. Do you want me to try it?
Maybe I have some block I'm not aware of. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's see. I think on my end it'll work. I have it pulled up right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Can you see?
Oh yeah, there we go.
Okay,
yep.
perfect.
Are you able to see that, Mike?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, play that one.
Okay, great.
Light it up like. Light it up like. Light it up, light it up, light it up like. Light it up like. Light it up, light it up, light it up like. Got the fire in the flames. Burn it up and straight.
Hey Facebook, start video.
Now it's my time and I'm making it.
Hey, can I take a photo?
Light it,
Sure.
light it.
I'm gonna also share the link in the chat for those who just want to.
It's been 6 months.
Oh yeah, great.
I purchased a pair of the Meta Ray-Ban smart glasses.
Nice.
Going. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of songs, I suppose, that carry similar elements. This one, for us at the time, which was several years ago now, felt like kind of carried some elements. And when we got this finished song from the artist, we loved it right away. To be honest, we didn't know if it would license, and those are almost the best songs for us, that just have this great vibe that we think this is fantastic. And I do feel, that sort of sound and some of the specific nuances within it have been sort of now, in overabundance. There's some other songs like that, and but what we did there is several years ago, I forget what the references were, but we, started seeing certain elements of what the backbeat and the kind of vibe and some of those lyric kind of hooks coming up in spots, and sent through various examples to the artist if something resonated with her, whose name is Elena Cross in this particular case. And the way we operate is what we take on will be the exclusive licensing partner. She has some deals with some other companies as well, but we tend to be her primary kind of company where she'll send music to first. And in particular, if we're working closely with an artist and giving them certain direction and influences or inspirations, and if they're sending those, or we've lined up a collaboration, we're going to take those songs on, assuming we like it, we dig it, and we think we can do something with it, we'll represent it exclusively. But our deals are often sort of song by song, if you will. And she may get involved in another project, work with someone else unrelated to us, and turn in something, maybe run it by us first. But if we turn it down, bring it to another company. But this artist is Elena Cross. And yeah, we presented a handful of influences. She finished that, and it resonated with her. And she kind of came up with her own kind of new song. And it was a rare case where within like 3 weeks after we got that final version, it was almost like the next day, within the next week or two, we had the creative brief of what that company, Ray-Ban, was looking for, and tied in with Facebook and working with that supervisor. And it just worked. Just one of those, like, that vibe worked. And some of the elements you'll hear, having some distinctions, some different parts, which are important. I think in commercial songs, having music that an editor can play with is definitely important, and promo and trailer music as well, which is generally a little bit different characteristics. Commercial tends to lean a little bit more upbeat, a little bit lighter, not always, but still has distinctions, different parts, hooks, and different sections that you can play with. Without realizing it, necessarily about that song. We just loved it, and it had a lot of these elements that worked, the picture. And we've licensed it a few other instances as well, and in TV media for that song.
Cool. That must be so exciting when things align like that and it just works out perfectly and so satisfying. All that work pays off.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
It was great. Yeah.
So other than Ray-Ban, what other favorite brands have you worked with recently?
Nissan, and that was one that I sent through a reference as well. Amazon, and that's almost like a counter. It can be a counter argument to well, that's a weird song that licensed, but I can talk on that one. We've had some Google licenses through the years. That's not as much recently. A handful of other brands, but those are a couple very recent ones. Nissan had some elements to play with and edit, and just had a, kind of big, heavy beat, kind of a hip hop track. They ended up using sort of a backing vocal, or effectively the instrumental. But it, had just a beat and a certain pattern to it that really drove and moved along for a car spot. The Amazon spot I'm referencing, which is very recent, was a deep catalog track. And so there you might go with something recognizable. This in that case was the Everly Brothers, but not their recognizable All I Have to Do Is Dream, but rather the original recording of Bird Dog. And that is such a strange, song to license. And the publisher, because we've just taken on the catalog within the last year, the publisher, and we were able to negotiate a healthy fee. The publisher would have done it for way less. So they were thrilled with us because we got a very, good fee. The spot just happened to have a dog, in the commercial spot. And they just got sold on it, the brand wanting a song that had dog in the lyric. But generally that would not be a direction we would give to writers. So write a song with dog. But, I think they wanted sort of somewhat of a catalog track, a vintage sound, something authentic. And so the brothers check those boxes. It's going to be hard for a new artist to fit in there. And then, dog in the lyric, and there you go. So sometimes there's sort of those odd ones that work. And
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah.
be
Sometimes
right.
you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there specific, a couple people have asked us if there's any specific genres that you're looking for right now, in need of, or anything?
Yeah, and let me review kind of what my colleague had sent through for these kind of specific references to see if there's something we could share there
Yeah.
for the songwriters. For us, genres, we do say what we have, and then from there, what we could use a little bit more of. I mean, we do have a good amount of high energy driving hip hop right now, so we're not necessarily looking for too much more there. That tends to work more on the sports, TV, film, but in the right way. There's been a lot of marketing type of spots, sports related often, but commercial opportunities that are using a kind of higher energy, good beat, hip hop driven type track with some throwback old school elements. We could still potentially use a little bit more of that. We do have some in the hip hop space. Sort of your vibey, soulful, great voice songs. We're probably a little bit more open ears on those right now for the right soulful vocal artist songs. We could probably use a little bit more of. And then there's certain things that come up. I'm referencing what my colleague sent just because we had identified a few coming up in the advertising space. So maybe following this call, we could see if some of those might be good for the room to send around. Those are a couple of things that come to mind. For a while, we were also looking for more female hip hop, but we do have a decent amount of that covered. I'd say soulful R&B influenced music is what we could use some more of for us specifically.
Great. That's good to know. With people wanting to write new songs specifically for certain opportunities, or if you already have songs in your catalog that could fit. Did you want to show, I think you had did you have one other example as well? The Nissan ad that you wanted to
That's
show
pretty
as
short.
well?
You could, yeah, for something kind of a little more hip hop beat driven, you could.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
And would you want to share your screen for that Nissan one?
Yes.
Cool.
Let me see. Actually, yeah. I have it pulled up right here.
Thank you.
While you're pulling that up, I'll answer the two questions I see. R&B or throwback. Be interested to hear both. Yeah, we don't have as much as we'd like right there. So R&B, whether it's got a throwback, soulful, warm sound, vintage elements, yeah, we'd be ears on that. Or if it's modern, potentially ears, on that of interest as well. We work not only exclusively, but the vast bulk of our deals are exclusive for the songs that we take on, especially kind of current artist songs. If we're going to invest in it, or our time and energies, we tend to do exclusive deals. There's certain exceptions, but they're few and far between. And the exceptions tend to be for some of the catalogs. And we really try to be careful that, someone else out there in our same licensing space as a licensing agency isn't doing the same thing we're doing with those, songs, if we're taking something on non-exclusively. But yeah, we tend to be exclusive for what we take on a song by song. Mm-hmm. If it's easier for you, you can make the decision of how you want to accept any submissions from this group here. But we can offer a link through Disco if Disco is something that is easier for you, and have everybody send in one song to be considered, and we can send that playlist to you. So that's easier rather than if that's easier. Yeah, cool. Come in one spot. Cool.
So I'll drop that link at the end of the call for everyone. So keep an eye out.
Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah.
Just got someone. Okay, I'm gonna play this.
Want to go somewhere amazing? Nice, right? But we're not there yet. Not this either. Still not it. Finding the next stepping place isn't the point. In a Nissan Pathfinder, search is the adventure.
Cool. I like that, short and sweet.
Short and sweet, and somehow it took, these agencies, forever to find, and finally confirm that, which ended up being their perfect track.
It's nice to see examples of things that worked, and I think a lot of the time, as I'm sure you're well aware, it's like it's just the right moment, the right time, the right song, and it's hard to give exact, like, to do, you check this, and you get a placement. It's like you kind of just have to keep doing it, and hopefully at some point, if you continue and you stick with it, then something will work at some point.
Yeah. And with that last one, as just kind of an instrumental beat, with the backing vocal that's there, working. It goes without saying, but as you collaborate, or if you collaborate with people or in projects, just always be on the same page with your splits.
Someone asked also about diversifying income for artists, and if you have any professional advice or input on that, how artists can work to diversify their income more and make their careers more financially sustainable.
If you're an artist that kind of, and you do collaborations, I mean, I think that that in of itself is a good way to diversify. So in addition to some of the points that we addressed without getting into super detail on, your back end and making sure you're properly registering and collecting wherever you can, I think if you have the capability as a songwriter, if not, stick in your wheelhouse and what's like real and authentic. It's hard to do that when you're then switching and you're kind of in a R&B, project, and then you're in this, but bringing what you can and then branding something differently can be a way to do that. So I know we kind of referenced in a potential point that we could speak about a couple examples of successes we've had working with an artist that didn't necessarily, or a producer, songwriter that didn't necessarily have certain branded projects, and working with them to develop an identity, a brand, a new artist project, and approaching it like an artist project is a way, if you can get involved in that, whether you're a songwriter with then that, what becomes that sort of front facing project, or if you are the artist producer, vocalist for that project. But I think a way to diversify your income stream is to get involved in different projects, and instead of just necessarily co-writing different songs, if you're involved with artists and brands, or projects that can be branded like an artist or brand. So we've had success with an artist project named Hidden Citizens in the promo and trailer space in particular, but they also have worked for some advertisements. And we worked with them starting by identifying, in their particular case, cover songs for them to do and turn on its head. This is going back almost 10 years ago, where that's where we started, and kind of developed a bit of an identity and a sound and a presence, if nothing else, in the sync community. I think they're known, and we've seen them referenced on Trailer House client briefs. Hey, you send a song like this one, the Hidden Citizens covered. It's like, hey, why don't you license that one? They're referenced in the brief now. So at least in the sync community, they've developed an identity. So, Jackson Gamble is another, if someone wanted to reference some artist projects that we work with, that started around a lot of direction, a lot of brainstorming of a sound to develop. And one of the key producers of Jackson Gamble is the same as Hidden Citizens. Hidden Citizens has a bunch of different featured vocalists and artists and songwriters, and that's the way too. If you're a songwriter, if you have a great voice and are a songwriter, we have great relationships with a number of just independent songwriters that have been featured, that are collaborators on Hidden Citizens tracks. So the producer's the key thread to it, and developed a bit of a cohesive sound despite having different elements in there and some rappers on it. There's a sort of production value that becomes a cohesive unit in the Hidden Citizens releases, starting out with dark epic orchestral, maybe it's epic orchestral sort of feelings that are their kind of brand identity. In some cases, it's a hip hop orchestral sound with a featured rapper. In other cases, it's a beautiful or hauntingly dark song with a female vocalist that's featured that was independent that we maybe suggested, pair with them. And we have a deal and a relationship with the female, vocalist, songwriter, artist, and that female artist has her own totally different project. And so she then is not only doing her project, which in this particular case actually is a bit of an R&B soulful thing, her own thing, but we don't have a lot of that. And then she's got the ability to have a total different voice that fits with this epic orchestral project of Hidden Citizens. So that songwriter has diversified her income stream by having a deal with us as a featured vocalist and a deal with us to release that recordings. And so not just for sync, but we happen to have a label side and some marketing partners that we've worked with in promoting that music. In the case of Hidden Citizens, because sync has been a driving factor, video games have helped the exposure, licenses in general, and promos and trailers has helped the exposure. So for us, and I should go on Spotify, see what they're at now, but some of their bigger songs still tend to be those covers, but they have a good number of originals. So, the artist producer has diversified his income by developing the brand with us, Hidden Citizens, with us, with Jackson Gamble, same producer, with us, with another project from that producer called Lucky Dropout. That's more like Meghan Trainor meets, I don't know, Harry Styles meets, it's kind of, or Bruno Mars, Meghan Trainor meets Bruno Mars kind of vibe, totally different, but that producer has that capacity to develop the brand identity. So if you're a producer on the call, like to the extent you can carry something within you of authenticity in the music that you generate, but considering, working in different realms, if that's what you want to do, but then branding it, that's one way. And then for those just songwriters, getting on those projects. So thinking about both, like Lucky Dropout, the Meghan Trainor by Bruno Mars, sort of wheelhouse, has various featured vocalists. And so we have deals, or in some cases they might be with another company, but they're diversifying their income by being participants, co-writers on those songs. The producer's diversifying his income or her income by developing different brands in a sound identity with that, and a social media presence to an extent possible, or at least some exposure in the sync community by building up.
Those
that
are
brand.
great.
And then in releasing it. So yeah, if you can get the syncs, if you can get some exposure and some eyeballs, that's a way we've loved to then be involved in releasing it as well, and attacking the YouTube playlisters, the channels. In the Hidden Citizens case, we also, increased revenue opportunities from characters, real people on America's Got Talent and these talent shows that have actually used their songs to their performances. And then there's a sync license, obviously, for licensing the song to be used in America's Got Talent and these shows, and then just those promos and trailers using the songs have created exposure. And in some cases, just releasing it first, the song was not licensed, so it wasn't doing much, but it was out there, and we got YouTube. Some cases we drove this too with someone that does marketing for us, drove the right kind of playlist channels, and in their case, because their vibe was kind of like that epic orchestral sound that I referenced. And this is going back some years, but some epic rock, kind of channels and epic orchestral YouTube playlists featured those songs. And it kind of just permeated enough within just YouTube playlists where some editors found it. So we wouldn't know, it's great when we, and the clients and the agencies know editors in addition to the music creatives and the music supervisors in the studios, but we don't know everyone. No one knows everyone. So being able just to have your songs out there can be a way as well. Sometimes, but lesser and lesser circumstances now where it feels like super advantageous to hold back from releasing a song. There's your cases back in the day of Twilight and just they would only accept, or the Hunger Games franchise, like songs that were not yet released. And is it the right song, but it's got to be not yet released. So that can come up, or a commercial or a TV show that happens to want something cool that's not yet released. Few and far between. now. So there's nothing super precious that you're holding it out for. Releasing it and seeing what you can do to get some additional exposure on it. Those influencers, playlist channels on YouTube can then get it out there, and editors might find it that way. So we've had some successes with that too. I was kind of rambling, but
Amazing.
trying to
No, that's great.
hit a couple key points there.
Yeah, those are such great tips about how to because people ask, like what genres you're looking for, and it's nice to have those different ideas and strategies for expanding like your capabilities as an artist of what you can do, but still maintaining a thread of your sound and your authenticity in all of that, regardless of the genre. So you can kind of dabble in different genres, but still have that thing that's you, that's authentically you, that makes you stand out in that way. It's very good point, and a good thing I think for people to keep in mind when they're writing.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily, you don't have to like box yourself into a specific genre, as long as you have some sort of thread that weaves through all of your music that makes you stand out and identifies you. Yeah, it's a great point. I think I can't believe we're already at the end of their time, but if I could fit in, if you have a second, just for one final question, and then I think NIE also dropped that link in the chat, so everybody check that out. And if you want to send one song to us, we'll create a playlist and send it over to Mike as a private playlist for him. But I was gonna just ask one follow-up question, if that's okay, Mike. Just for people who want to become those artists who people like you have relationships with and go back to and can discover, is the way that you find those people usually through just discovery of music that's already been synced, that's already had placements, or are there other ways for artists to kind of get on your radar as a new artist or as someone that you haven't heard of before? Are there ways that they can connect with you and try to build that relationship?
It's a great question. Yeah, I mean, there's not one set way. Definitely for us, a way where we've tended to take on some new collaborators and artists is those collaborators and artists getting in with other people that we're already working with, or an artist or attorney or manager that ends up referring something that's already working with us and refers someone in their sphere. So a manager, if you are a writer and kind of managers working with some artists that have had some sync successes somehow, we've gotten turned on to some things there. Ideally, we do like to look at artists that have had some sync success or experience in the sync lanes if we're taking something new on. But yeah, foray could be just really aiming to get into some collaborations and sessions with artists that are doing some sync, But all that said, there's been the occasional artist. We just recently took on a new artist. We don't do a lot of that, but we just did because we loved the vibe. And we're needing to coach a little bit. We want them just doing their songs. So I would be cautious, like just do their songs. That's what we like. And hopefully we're going to find some opportunities there. They also want and are open in this particular case, which is great, to adapt certain songs or do a remix of a song, trailerization, of one of their songs that otherwise just isn't quite there in the trailer lane. But we like them just doing their artist project. So that's what they're going to do. And whether we're going to bring in a new producer to trailerize one of their songs or they can do it themselves, we'll see. But we'll sparingly, but occasionally still just take something on that really doesn't have any sync success yet, but it speaks to us. So it's hard to say, but we're still open if something just fits a need area for us and resonates in the right way.
Cool. Amazing. Thank you so much. This was all so helpful, this information. Are we doing an AMA with, okay, cool. So great. I was hoping, so if anyone has questions that didn't get answered today, head over to our private Facebook group called the Creators Circle, which I think is linked at the top, somewhere at the top of the chat, but maybe we can link that again. And yeah, thank you, Anai. Perfect. So if anybody has a question that didn't get answered, head over there, add it to the thread for Mike's workshop today, and we can get that answered for you, and then keep the conversation going over there. So thank you again. This was so amazing. Thank you everybody for your great questions, and Mike for all that information, golden nuggets in there. And we'll have the replay up on our website as well if anyone wants to go back and take notes or write anything down that they missed. That will be up by the end of the week.
A music supervisor meet and greet next Wednesday at 11 a.m. for those who would like to join us. I also sent the link in the chat. And then for the Ask Me Anything, any questions before Friday, 12 p.m. are accepted. And then for the disco link, anything before Sunday is accepted, or before Monday morning.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that so much.
Thanks for having me.
Great to meet you.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everybody.